dreaming of his own destiny. And then, history delivered the perfect storm. The French Revolution exploded, turning the entire country and the old way of doing things completely upside down. In all that chaos, with France fighting itself and all of its neighbors, things like your family name didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was talent and a serious dose of ruthlessness. And Napoleon had both of those in spades. At the siege of Toulon, his genius plan. Hello and welcome everyone to History Shots. Today, we're tackling one of history's most gigantic figures, a man who was a military genius, a revolutionary, an emperor, and a tyrant. We're talking, of course, about Napoleon Bonaparte. He's a man who completely reshaped Europe, but the big question has always been, was he a force for good or for evil? And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? How did one single person manage to become a symbol of liberation for so many, while also being a power-hungry dictator? To even begin to understand this puzzle, you've got to go right back to the start. You see, Napoleon's rise to the top was anything but a sure thing. He wasn't born into French royalty or a powerful family. Nope. He started his life as a total outsider, a kid from a small island who somehow, against all odds, would one day rule an entire empire. So picture this. He's born on the island of Corsica, right after it was conquered by France. He grew up worshipping Corsican freedom fighters and actually saw his own father as a bit of a traitor for working with the French. Then he gets shipped off to military school in mainland France, where he was completely the odd one out. The other kids made fun of his accent, so he pretty much buried himself in books, devouring stories about historical legends like Julius Caesar, and you can just imagine him dreaming of his own destiny. And then, history delivered the perfect storm. The French Revolution exploded, turning the entire country and the old way of doing things completely upside down. In all that chaos, with France fighting itself and all of its neighbors, things like your family name didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was talent and a serious dose of ruthlessness. And Napoleon had both of those in spades. At the siege of Toulon, his genius plan with the artillery won a huge victory, and boom, he's promoted to general. He's only 24 years old. A couple of years later, a mob in Paris is threatening the government, and Napoleon? He doesn't even blink. He famously gives them a whiff of grape shot. Basically, he fired cannons into the crowd. It was brutal, but it made him a national hero. And his reward for that? He gets command of the entire French army in Italy. But here's the thing about Napoleon. Being a military hero was never going to be enough. His ambition was bigger than that. His next target was absolute political power, and the way he got it was through a campaign of pure, brilliant deception. This is where you really see Napoleon, the master of spin, at work. His big campaign in Egypt was, in reality, a total military failure. The British Navy sank his fleet at the Battle of the Nile, and he ended up literally abandoning his own army and sneaking back to France. But the story he told back home? Oh, it was a completely different tale. He was the conquering hero, the brilliant scholar who brought back ancient treasures like the Rosetta Stone. He wasn't just a general, he was spreading Enlightenment ideals. He had figured out that perception is reality. And he got so good at this. Just look at that famous painting of him crossing the Alps. He's on this majestic, rearing horse, looking like a god of war. The reality? He crossed the Alps on a plain old mule. I mean, it makes sense, it's much more practical. But a mule doesn't make for a legendary painting, does it? The image was always more important than the truth. So, he rides this massive wave of carefully crafted fame right back into Paris, which was a total mess at the time. He stages a coup, kicks out the government, and names himself first consul. Just like that, he was the most powerful man in France. But he had to make it look like the people wanted it. So what does he do? He holds a referendum on his new constitution. The result? A completely believable 99.9% yes vote. Right. Then, a couple of years later, he holds another one, this time to make him consul for life. The result? A landslide of 99.7%. And the grand finale. In 1804, a vote to make him Emperor of France. The people have spoken. A staggering 99.9% voted yes. It was almost unanimous. The whole country was apparently behind him. Except, it was all fake. A complete fabrication. Historians have dug into this, and the real numbers were probably closer to a 50-50 split. He just made up the results he wanted to create this illusion that everyone, everywhere adored him. I mean, let's be honest, Napoleon wasn't exactly hiding his true intentions. He said it himself, "Power is my mistress." This was never about democracy or the will of the people. It was about his own personal, unstoppable hunger for control. So he's got it, absolute power. But what does he actually do with it? Well, this is where we get to the core of the whole debate. The paradox of Napoleon, the great reformer versus the brutal dictator. Okay, first, let's make the case for Napoleon the hero. The man was an incredible administrator. He gave France the Napoleonic Code, which was this brilliant modern legal system that's still the basis for law in tons of countries today. He created the Bank of France to fix the economy, he championed religious freedom, and he built a modern, centralized school system. He literally built the framework for modern France. But, and this is a huge but, there's the other side of the coin. This so-called champion of revolutionary ideals, he brought back slavery in the French colonies. He took away many of the rights women had won. He crushed freedom of the press, shut down newspapers, and threw anyone who criticized him out of the country. He put his own brothers on the thrones of countries he conquered. And worst of all, his insatiable ambition dragged Europe into almost non-stop bloody warfare for 15 years, killing millions. You know, this feeling of betrayal was real, even for his biggest fans. The legendary composer Beethoven, he actually dedicated his incredible Third Symphony, the Eroica, to Napoleon, who he saw as this great liberator. But when Beethoven heard that Napoleon had crowned himself emperor, he flew into a rage. He screamed that Napoleon was nothing more than an ordinary man and a tyrant, and he grabbed the manuscript and scratched out Napoleon's name so violently he tore a hole in the paper. An empire built on pure ambition and endless war, well, it just can't last. The final act of Napoleon's story is a spectacular, dramatic, and probably inevitable fall from the very top. And when the end came, it came fast. His disastrous decision to invade Russia in 1812 absolutely shattered his army. That weakness gave the rest of Europe an opening. They ganged up on him, defeated him, and exiled him to the tiny island of Elba. Of course, in true Napoleon fashion, he escaped for one last incredible gamble, the 100 days, before being defeated for good at Waterloo. His story ends not in a palace, but in lonely exile on a windswept rock in the middle of the Atlantic. Which brings us right back to our original question. So who was he? Was he the brilliant visionary who dragged France into the modern age? Or was he the ruthless tyrant whose ego cost millions their lives? The complicated, maybe frustrating truth is that he was both. And that's his legacy, trying to make sense of all the good and all the terrible that he left behind. But now that you've heard the story, I want to know what you think. After all is said and done, where do you land on Napoleon Bonaparte? Was he a hero or a villain? Let us know your verdict in the comments.